Hello and welcome, dearest friends of this here internet. My name is Mock, and I am done with technical difficulties. I will not have them anymore. From now on, I'm not going to mess with anything that is just going to cost me time and effort. So, we're back at it with the iPad, and today, as I had intended originally, I will be finishing the character design sheet for my avatar. Just gotta plug my iPad into a charger to make sure it does not die halfway through. All right, checked in on our audio. Looks like everything's functional. And will I be watching something today? I really don't know. I don't know what I would be watching. But here's our playlist of things to look at. Actually, this first one looks pretty interesting. So Basecamp uploaded about 9 days ago the video titled "The Technology Behind the Soul, Mysticism, Tech, and Witches," which seems right up my alley. Before I start that though, let's see if I can put this away for a second. Like I was saying previously, I have a 3D render of my my avatar that I created a little while back, and I will be basing my character design sheet off of those 3D files. I'll be uploading them onto Procreate, and then I will basically refine the design further in 2D.
Hello, Simone! I'm excited to be here with you today. Today we're going to be discussing a very interesting question, which is if a dualist reality exists. So if people are familiar with what dualism is the belief that reality consists of both a material world and a spiritual world, and that these are fundamentally different things. This is like most Christians, most branches of Christianity are dualist. They believe in a soul, in spiritual stuff that is completely separate from our material reality. Then, if you are a monist, as we generally are considered, you believe that one type of thing exists. And that one type of thing can either be only the spiritual exists or only the material exists.
Right.
Okay? So we're getting this out of the way. But if you are a dualist, one thing that I've been thinking about recently is what additional utility dualism grants an individual in terms of interpretation of reality and morality. And by this, what I mean is it came from something that Leaflet said to me on stream, which I thought was just absolutely brilliant. One of the smarter things in terms of changing my world perspective that I've heard in a long time. She was like, well, you believe that everything that God does, because we're monist materialists, is essentially a super advanced technology that we simply don't understand yet. And the wording that Simone used around this that I found really changed my view of this, which is technology is just magic that we understand. Instead of framing it the other way, like magic is just technology we don't understand, to frame it technology because we don't even I'm even going to put it differently. Technology is just magic that we presume somebody understands. Because you don't understand.
Right. It's the whole going back to Deus ex machina, right? Deus ex machina, which translates to by mechanism of God or something of the sort. So there is some kind of mechanics at work, which are unexplainable by the current human logic and the current human understanding. And essentially, because it is outside of human understanding and human grasp, it is only explainable by the work of God.
And the vast majority of technology.
Yeah, I can't tell you how this does the things that it does. I mean, I can describe what I've been told.
Yeah, it's functionally magic to us, right? And this is where it gets interesting, because the thing that differentiates technology from something that's not technology is whether there is presumably somebody in the world who understands how that thing works. Now, presumably, God would have full knowledge of both the spiritual world and its rules of interaction and the material world and its rules of interaction. And through that knowledge, he would be enacting his will within each of those realms. Given that's the case, in the same way that I can say, this is technology because I am aware that somebody somewhere in the universe knows how this works. Any spiritual power that God is exercising is a technology from God's perspective. And she's like, so given that's the case, why are people so... This is a track, by the way, whenever Techno-Puritan tracks, but it's going to be more musings on this particular concept. Why are people so antagonistic to my belief in everything in the Bible being done with hyper advanced technology? Because functionally, they believe the same thing that we believe, that it's done with hyper advanced technology. They just don't fully, they think that part of that technology is spiritual in nature. And this is where it gets really, really interesting as a point to sort of pull apart. Because first, now we get to ask a number of really interesting questions. Okay, so this means a materialist monist ideology is actually not as dissimilar from a spiritualist monist ideology as many people would think. So these are, as a reminder here, the monists believe there is only one, either the material or the spiritual world.
Right.
And the monist spiritualist believes that actually the material world, as we think we're understanding it, is an illusion. And what actually is the spiritual world. Whereas
how different are those from simulation theory people?
Extremely different. In no way are they...
In my opinion, they're not that different. In my opinion, they're just two very different interpretations of the same thing, essentially.
Connected at all. I can't even think how they could... How did you get that was connected?
Because the simulation theory people believe that what we think of is the material world is not really a material world, but rather a technological simulation.
Oh, I guess in that respect, they are similar. But yeah, they typically wouldn't frame it that way. They think it's more like we exist in some sort of spiritual ether that is projecting the forms that we believe the material world is made up of.
Simulation theory.
A lower order existence. I suppose, yeah. But at the end of the
I like how she immediately saw through that and it was just like, whoa, what do you mean?
day, a materialist monist and materialist spiritualist actually have the same worldview, just different hypotheses about the physical rules of that worldview. Both of them believe that our world is fundamentally governed by laws that can be studied and eventually understood to some extent. Both of them believe that God has a perfect understanding of those laws. The spiritualist believes that the laws that physics has uncovered are completely downstream of some other more important set of laws. However, most materialists believe this as well. I believe that the laws that physics understands right now are not complete. And
Oh,
we
yeah.
will find layers of physics above the layers of physics that we currently have.
And I believe this understanding of science is essentially why classical scientists were all believers in God, right? They were all trying to search for essentially the mechanisms through which God created the universe, and they were not atheistic because through researching the laws of nature, the various components that make up reality, they essentially came to the conclusion that, well, these mechanisms were put in place by someone or something, and we only understand a fraction of it at the moment, but perhaps if we research further, we would be able to better understand or come closer to the one who created everything.
The core difference, so we actually fundamentally, up until now, all believe the same thing. I think the real core difference between the spiritualist and the materialist monist is the materialist believes the laws that we find above the laws right now, or like I believe this, are going to be mathematical in nature. It's going to be some form of like equation that basically reality is graphed upon. See our episode on the math behind reality, and we talk about this in some of our tracks where we go into our beliefs on this, that reality is a self-graphing equation. Whereas the spiritualist believes, no, it's actually like thoughts and gists and ideas and this, wishy thinking that
Essentially, they believe that, or from what I am understanding of his, interpretation of their beliefs, their idea is essentially that reality itself is just kind of like all consciousness, right? And like at the higher levels and at the lower levels, it's all just, the thoughts and emotions and the perceptions of consciousness.
it exists at the higher plane.
And
And
is
the-
that not semantics? Because math is just a language that we use to describe certain things. But I think you're saying that, I mean, are thoughts and wishy thinking also not just a language?
Well, I think the second thing, which is why the wishy thinking being at the core of reality rather than the math being at the core of reality.
Oh, come on. But yeah, I essentially see it the same way as Simone does, right? It's all language of some sort. Mathematics is a language, and consciousness is a type of language as well. Well, actually, I guess technically consciousness would be more like the source of language. I don't know. I guess I would have to think about it further.
Core of reality rather than the math being at the core of reality.
Ace, what is it? The simple answer is, we don't know. Or at least we didn't know until now. Hello, I'm not a scientist, but I do have a better understanding of what space is than any scientist living today. Where did I gain these insights? From this man, the founder of Spaceology. Beth Gaga Shaggy is the founder of Spaceology.
Where is this clip
what he
from?
told me when I met him on holiday.
Space is invisible mind dust, and stars are but wishes.
I mean, think about that. That means every star you can see in the night sky is a wish that has come true. And they've come true because of something he calls space star ordering. Space star ordering is based on the twin scientific principles of star maths and wishy thinking. If that doesn't convince you, well then, maybe you just don't deserve to get what you want.
Is that I believe that to understand reality, we must probe reality, right? And this is how the vast majority of science came about. It was people trying to understand God's plan better, right? Like that is what science was historically, right? It is the knowledge of God to, what is it, cover things. It's the knowledge of kings to unveil them, right? And so for a long time, historically, that is what drew scientific advancement. Was it desire to get closer to God in our understanding of reality, as we're directly commanded to do in that verse in the Bible, right? And so the spiritualist, on the other hand, thinks that to understand a higher order reality, the direction you probe is with rituals and inwardly. You know, basically through meditation and rituals, you can discover, or even psychedelics within some communities.
Oh,
you can
okay. Yeah,
discover
that
these
is
higher
a very
states.
specific division then. Yeah, okay. No, okay.
Whereas
following
we
you.
see these things as corruptions of the mind. And for
Yeah.
people who understand why we see these as corrupted mental states, it's because the information that is obtained during them is, generally speaking, worse at being predictive of future world states, future physical states, basically the stuff that science allows, than a sober mind is. And so we see them negatively. By the way,
Drop in on kid speaker. Okay. Then you be good, clean up some messes, and when I come down, we'll make mac and cheese, all right? Okay. Bye, guys.
and then this brings me to another interesting question here, which I hadn't thought through before, which is, okay, suppose there is a spiritual world, because somebody asked, what would it take for me to believe in a spiritual world? And I was
Yeah.
like, well, if there was a spiritual world, it would presumably operate by some set of rules, and we would be able to eventually, as technology increases, interact with it in some meaningful way, right? Or even if it's not as technology increases, as our understanding of ritual increases, as our understanding of meditation increases, as our understanding of, you know, all of these people who are these spiritual masters, if they're presumably advancing any real knowledge that has efficacious utility in the world, we would see their power intergenerationally advance. And when it reaches a point where the efficaciousness of the spiritual pursuit and research is undeniable, what you're going to have happen is companies will begin to exploit that, right? Like, if a company...
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name of Scott Alexander's book that explores exactly this concept that, like, what if suddenly it was just discovered and then you get these startups that are like farming for like incantations that you can use that will.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we never really saw a proper fulfillment of this potential reality. We had something similar happen in various economies, you know, in essentially like the medieval times, and now currently in some third world countries where, you know, people will sell incantations, they will sell magical items and potions and so on and so forth. But it's not really like it's never really become concrete enough for like future or further exploration scientifically or economically. You know, it's never actually fully developed in any way. So yeah, if that's a tough question, because if the metaphysical sort of spiritual self-enlightenment area of, you know, religiosity is effective, then why haven't we been able to make anything out of it?
You know, incite different things to happen.
Yeah, they go through just different...
All right, I'm gonna take a quick snack break because I'm a fatty. So I'm gonna eat some strawberry full moon chiffon cake. Is that even visible? That's not even visible. What the fuck am I doing?
words all day, so they try to find one iteration of the word that has some power, right?
Yeah, and then
patent
they patent it. Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's patents for determining when people are using the incantations without the proper.
Exactly.
But that is like when people are like, if a spiritual world existed in the way that I would believe in that spiritual world, it would be mortifying. It would be Warhammer 40k. Like, basically, you need the spiritual world to be like the warp to have this not happen, right? So you could have a spiritual world where, like, the spiritual world is just and this is how it is in Warhammer, is by its nature chaotic and malevolent and leads to feedback loops. And if this is the world
What does that
we live in-
mean? Chaotic, malevolent, and leads to feedback loops.
Well, so what happens in the 40k universe is everything that like humanity collectively believes in begins to, or any sentient species believes in, begins to grow a physical form within the warp, which is
Yeah, like in Neil Gaiman's American Gods.
Yeah, but what that means is simple basal desires essentially create feedback loops. So like a fear of death and disease creates
Creates
a
a
feedback
god.
loop where it creates a god that grows the more fear of death and disease there is. So this god creates more death and disease, which creates more fear of
Oh.
death and disease, which creates more death and disease, and so you get a feedback loop, which leads to a god. You have the same thing with like lust. You have the same thing with like the god of lust would want to create like crazy, Anna Valen's like, what do we call those? Cenobites, right?
Oh,
Who just do anything for pleasure until there's nothing left about a husk of who they once were. And this creates these horrible cycles, right? But generally, this sort of world where even
You see, this is a thought that I have, but it's not fully fleshed out. I think reality does work this way, but not quite in the same way. I think for those who live purely on consciousness and not logic, this does in fact happen, but it's more of an internal effect rather than external effect. For those who hyper focus on, for example, death and disease becomes inevitable. But it's all due to their own consciousness. It's all due to their own psyche being affected by that feedback loop of thoughts and emotions. I guess the best way to describe it is kind of like PTSD, right? The more you focus on a set thought, the more it cripples you mentally and physically.
in this world, like in the Warhammer world, people can still achieve some benefits from being like a Zeech follower or something like that, right? Like, but if the spiritual world is just purely chaos, you would not be able to use it. And this would explain all of the warnings of people who are like, don't gaze into spiritualism. It just messes up those people's minds. It just scrambles them. The vast majority of people mentally break. And I point this out. I mean, you could just look. The vast majority of spiritual gurus basically go nutso, butso.
Yeah. And it's because it's not loud. It's because they dabble into the messing with their psyche a little too much. And it ends up warping their perception.
They stop practicing proper hygiene. They begin to look like wild-eyed. They have a harder and harder time thinking logically through what they're doing, and it can lead to fall off. And we can go into why this happens in just a second. But to take an aside here, spiritualism as if it does have factual power, companies would mass exploit it. Apparently, there's a movie called like Flesh Pits or something like this. Flesh Pits Park.
Have you been out to Mr. Flesh Pit National Park yet? No? Well, what are you waiting for? The Thunderground awaits. Howdy, folks. You can call me Cave Coop, and I'm here to tell you all about all the wonderful things you can find at Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. It's got fun for the whole family. Don't worry. If you're a timid spelunker, we've got plenty to do on the surface. Beautiful hiking trails bathed in that beautiful Texas sun, plenty of fishing, camping, and of course, the breathtaking view of the Flesh Pit's entry orifice. Believe me when I say it will change your perception of existence itself. For those cowboy enough to adventure to the lower visitor center within the Mystery Flesh Pit, a whole new world awaits. From hiking in the southern bronchial
I have
forest
never heard of
to the
this.
Dental Farms Petting Zoo, there is plenty to explore. And for the parents, you might consider a full immersion dip in the amniotic ballast spa. where you might glimpse the face of God awakening your mind to cosmic horrors you can now suddenly comprehend.
Now we gotta go help people customize and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Maybe where's the golf cart? There it is. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
What makes a daddy? Maybe
Maybe it's skipping this ad.
Where like
Thank you very much.
Coca-Cola begins to like mine this beast as like a form of soda for people, right? Like the moment anything is understandable to the extent that it can be used for personal benefit, it can be used for corporate benefit and industrialized, right?
What the hell is this thing made out of?
All right, fine. I might have used a few unorthodox parts.
Just tell me one.
An orphan.
Did you say an orphan?
Yeah, a little orphan boy.
It's powered by a forsaken child?
Might be, kind of. I mean, I didn't use the whole thing.
So it's a pretty mortifying world to think of. Now, you
Didn't
could
use the whole
think
thing.
Maybe God puts on specific protectors that prevent the spiritual world from being engaged with in this way. To which I would say, well, if you believe that, you're not a Christian and you're not a Jew. Because Jews very explicitly believe that through engaging with the spiritual world, you can accidentally contact malevolent spirits that can cause problems. I mean, this was the Baal Shems always used to do this sort of stuff. That you can, it can cause. I mean, a lot of Jewish classical stories are about some Baal Shem went out there, created a golem or something when he wasn't supposed to, and he goes nuts and destroys a town. This was like classic Jewish storytelling. And so Jews don't believe this. Do Christians believe this? Well, presumably, if you think that witches are real to any extent, if you are a spiritualist, you do believe that, they're clearly harnessing malevolent spiritual power, right? Like, so, and the Bible does tell us that witches exist, right? Now, obviously, I think that what it means by that is mysticism more broadly, but, if you believe in spiritualism, you're going to believe in witches. So, suffer not a witch to live and all that. But these people who believe this more broadly, they also know that, okay, well, so at least the Bible doesn't say that God keeps a positive interaction.
And on the note of the Jewish folklore on, not dabbling with unknown spirits, I also believe in those things, essentially. But the difference is that my understanding of these unknown spirits is basically ideologies and mindsets and emotions that are not conducive to productive behaviors. So, for example, the idea of like a god of war is not necessarily like, I believe that there is a literal like physical entity out in the world who, dictates and essentially physically controls wars. Rather, I believe that there is an ideology and a mindset that takes over people when they become too heavily involved in the topic of war.
Was the spiritual plane. So, okay. Or you could say, well, whenever you engage with the spiritual plane for personal benefit, it ends up having some sort of like reverberating negative effect on you, which maybe that could be a reason, but I still think that there would be a way a company could get around that, right? Like, maybe use like pawns as the spiritualists and then sort of farm out their bad luck and make money while not directly engaging with spiritualism, but having all the secret rituals themselves, right? There's always a way this can be exploited, right? So, but then what do you even gain by believing in the additional spiritual reality, right? How different would the spiritual reality need to be from the material one to be a meaningfully different reality to you?
Well, but I think that where I really have my, I guess, gripes or has it like, I take umbrage on this idea of I can just search internally and find truth when we know how flawed, both like from, if you just want to look biblically at how flawed people's own minds are and opinions are and like views, how warped your view of reality can be, plus our understanding of just actual biology and the human brain from science thus far.
Well, I mean, and it creates horrible, like, this is why mystics so often go crazy, is if your own subjective experience of reality is the ultimate truth of that reality, then when you're in a group of other mystics, right, which mystic's interpretation, because you can't be like, you're provably wrong, look here, which mystic's interpretation comes first? And the mystics who's the top of the popularity hierarchy, basically, the one who can push the others around, right? Because one person goes, well, subjectively, I feel this is true. And the other mystic says, well, subjectively, I feel this is true.
Yeah, it's using very faulty equipment for something. Like, I don't care what ultimately is real, but I do care that we are using, you know, a thing that works for measuring and gauging what it is. Because if you really care about the thing, don't you want to know? Like, they're trying to use, like, gosh, I don't know, like, they're stretching out, like, a chewed up piece of gum, and they're like, well, it's 1 gum long, because I stretched it out, and that's how long it is, and that's not, you can't use a chewed on piece of gum to measure the length of something. It's not a thing. Like, you're not going to get consistent results. Like, you can stretch it out and find a length, but that's not, no. So that's my biggest problem here.
Like, when you think about a community, so imagine two mystics disagree with each other. How do they determine who's right? Now, in Judaism,
yeah, it's the louder, more charismatic one.
Yeah. The Jews will say, well, they go to the writings, and it's like, you know as well as I do that doesn't always work in the mystic communities.
Yeah.
It usually doesn't work in the mystic communities.
Yeah.
I mean, and famously, we know this doesn't work because the Baal Shem Tov literally did this when Rabbi Dov Ber, who everybody knew was a more learned rabbi than the Rabbi Baal Shem, he was generally considered this, he considered them else this, the Baal Shem considers him this. He goes to the Baal Shem Tov, the Baal Shem does some miracles in front of him, and he's like, okay, I've been convinced that everything that Jews have taught for the past 1,000 years is wrong, right? Like, you know, because he came to the Baal Shem Tov. This was his main convert who ended up becoming the next head rabbi of the group that today became the Hasidic movement, which again, big movement, right? And at the time, a lot of Jews were like, oh, you shouldn't do this. But now it's been so baked into Judaism because, you know, Chabad has so much power that this was the right thing to do. That as a Jew, you should follow the mystic with the closer connection to God over the guys who know the text better. Now, obviously, historically, as a Jew, you're not supposed to do this. This is very clear in the snake oven story, the oven of Ankai story, but we talk about this in some of our other tracks. We don't need to legislate it here. The point I'm making here is, so some Jews today, you know, will say, well, Judaism constrained by the text, which it used to be, but it's not as well anymore because these precedents have been set and accepted within the Hasidic community. And it's hard to put that back in the bottle. You can't be like, well, the Baal Shem Tov was clearly in the wrong, right? Because he, you know, did miracle working over the text, over textual legal analysis. But, you know, and this can lead to individuals crashing out, right? And we see this. You know, I obviously consider, like, Rubyard a good friend, right? And we warned him against going down this path. And I think that, you know, a lot of people are familiar with, you know, ayahuasca, the talking to Odin thing and everything like that. And I think that I don't really hold that against him. That's who he is. That's who he's always represented himself as being. He's a very mystical person. But, like, this is why mysticism can sort of lead you in these directions, because external world pushing back and being like, that doesn't sound objectively true, is no longer a pushback to your logic. It's no longer a pushback to your experience or world perspective, which can lead to wildly out there. This is where we have our episode, No Witches on Spaceships. Because you can begin to act in a way that is wildly dangerous vis-a-vis the wider community if now you are taking your subjective experience of how you think the life support system should work. And if people are like, oh, mystics would never go that far, I mean, look at the breatharians that are randomly killing themselves all the time. You've heard of the breatharians, right?
I thought those were made up. They were a part of that fake cult that I participated in.
Oh, no, breatharians are real.
Oh, that.
When it comes to food preferences, you've probably heard of a vegetarian.
Are you serious? Are you serious? Vegetarian, meatitarian, breatharian. Are these people who only live off of the air that they breathe? That's insane.
a pescatarian. How about a breatharian?
So it looks like this. And then the exhale is through the mouth.
Yes, a breatharian, as in breath. 25-year-old Audra Bear follows this lifestyle, which is also known as prana. She's very popular on Instagram. The idea here is not to weigh yourself down with food so you can fill yourself with breath and life.
Girl, really? Really?
Started breathing on December 1st, and by December 5th, 5 days later, I had no appetite for food. And I've eaten a handful of times since then, since in the last 6 months.
It does come with 2 LED lightings and different.
I don't know if she's being genuine.
For a better clean. The blue light is for tea.
A handful of times? Are you sure about that? A handful sounds like 2 to 3 times. Maybe 5, right? You would not look like this if you only ate, a couple of times in a 6-month period. I mean, were you morbidly obese before? I don't understand.
Food. And I've eaten a handful of times since then, since in the last 6 months.
Okay, so here's what she does consume: herbal teas, green juices and smoothies, coconut water, and sometimes soup. She says she does not miss food. The practice is more popular than you might think, but of course, we should mention medical professionals say you should seek advice before starting anything like this.
Yeah, a bunch of people have died from this, thinking that you can survive off of just air alone and mystical power, and that other people are just not trying hard enough.
Oh.
I mean, what are you supposed to get out of the air? Like, unfortunately, there's nothing to keep you. Like, there's nothing to sustain you.
It's the get a job, Al version of spiritualism.
Why don't you get a job? If you're so hungry, why don't you get a job? Get a job, Al. You got a negative attitude. That's what's stopping you. You got to get your act together.
I love it.
Yeah, but no, you repeatedly see people who believe that they can obtain a portion of life energy from like spiritual stuff. And so they go and they search out this stuff. But the point I wanted to get to, which I find to be a very interesting point, is how large do you need the spiritual world to be for it to be meaningful to you? So I'll explain what I mean by this. What if it turns out that the spiritual world as we understand it is simply another dimension operating on different physical laws? I mean, I really don't know what it would be if not that, right? Like, it's another dimension that can interact with our dimension and operates on a separate set of laws. Those laws are just the physics of this other reality, right?
And my personal opinion is, I don't know. I don't know if the spiritual is separated from the physical. I don't know if the spiritual is just a different means of understanding, understanding the harder to understand parts of the physical world. But for me, like, I don't really care too much to weigh myself down with the things that I can't understand in the moment, right? I'm more interested in getting to know the things that we understand today. And that's what I base my religiosity, my spiritualism off of, is, the practicality of it. Because there's a lot of practicality in, for example, Christian scripture and writings. But it often gets mistaken for being spiritual, for being about, some realm beyond. And for me, that realm beyond is here and now. And if there is, a sort of parallel realm beyond, then, even better. Like, for example, the whole question of should you be a good person, if, or would you be a good person if there were no heaven, right? Well, for me, that doesn't matter, because if there is no heaven, well, being a good person would just give me benefits today in my physical life. And if it turns out there actually is a heaven, well, then even better, because, well, then I get to go into heaven later on after my physical life is over.
In which case, why have you gained something significantly above the understanding we have by just looking at our reality by positing this? The other possibility is that the spiritual world is a secondary layer of our reality. That our reality exists with two membranal layers. Like basically a membranal layer was spiritual reality on one side of that layer, and the reality of the material world on the other side of that.
Well, this isn't necessarily mysticism. This is sci-fi. This is parallel worlds, right? This is like a thin veil between different worlds or different versions of reality. I mean, the difference between sci-fi and mysticism can be very thin, possibly even non-existent. A question of vocabulary choice.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've always found most, like, the reason why I became, like, very sincerely techno-Puritan when I went back and read the Bible is I was unaware that a literalist reading of the Bible could give me a materialist perspective on reality, right? Like, that I was like, oh, like, it actually promotes the idea that all of this is happening with technology, and, like, super, super advanced technology, but with technology as we understand it, and that it doesn't actually push for a separate spiritual world. If you want to get into why we argue that, you can look at our track series where we go over that. I think track 8 is where we cover that the most. It might be track 8 or 9 where we cover that the most, which is generally a good jumping off point if you're already religious to understand how heretical we are. But yeah, so that is, like, I don't think that you're gaining a lot if you're just like, well, there's another dimension with some rules that we don't fully understand yet. If
That was weird. Okay, so my capture card went out for a second, but I guess we're back. So the Bible does actually not fully say that there is a world beyond this world. It really more seems to imply that there's how do I explain it? It's like, let's see, how can I explain this? It's more like living beyond your life, but it doesn't necessarily state, how, or it doesn't actually fully go into the details and specifically state that there is, some sort of parallel world or some sort of underlying reality. It more states that through the right actions and the right deeds and the right type of alignment mentally and action-wise, that you can essentially live beyond your own life.
Just understand how heretical we are. But yeah, so that is, like, I don't think that you're gaining a lot if you're just like, well, there's another dimension with some rules that we don't fully understand yet. If there's another dimension with rules we don't understand yet, then you're positing a physical hypothesis about reality. You're not really positing a spiritual realm. You're positing that there is something that the scientists, the academics, the experts simply haven't discovered and cataloged yet, but it is real in the way that this world is real, just operating on different physical subsets, which makes the antagonism against the techno-Puritan tradition from a spiritualist perspective or from a dualist perspective very odd when you actually break this out, because you're like, oh, the dualist doesn't actually have some special, when they're like, well, I believe in, like, the wonder of magic and spiritualism, and it's like, well, that's not really a wonder. That's just you positing that there's something that we don't understand, where I also posit there are things we don't understand. I just think they probably don't look like that.
Yeah. I think for me, it comes down to word choice, and there are entirely legitimate reasons why people would just stylistically prefer different words, and tool use. And my problem is with the tool use. That's it.
Explain.
your subjective experience, your lived experience is not the best tool. Your I feel like I had this experience or God spoke to me is not reliable, because if we want to use your own chosen vocabulary, mystical person, demons also speak to you and they tell you, I'm God. Hi, I'm God. Listen to me. I'm correct. Right? Like, and also just your mind is not a very reliable narrator, no matter what. Just anyone who's experienced addiction would easily be able to explain that your mind can very cleverly get you to do very terrible and wrong things. It is not to be trusted. It
Yeah,
can
well, I
reason
mean,
anything.
especially in these corrupted states. And that's one of the problems about the corrupted state of the mystic, is that because it all becomes, at the end of the day, a popularity contest or a charisma contest, what it means is that it's assuming that they don't have any actual power. Now, if they do have actual power, then, you know, why aren't they curing world hunger, right? Like, why are they performing magic tricks, right?
Well, yeah, I don't know about any famous mystic who saved millions of lives or did amazing things or moved society forward, moved humanity forward.
Note here, I should clarify, she means mystics made any major contributions in their mystical research. Obviously, mystics have made contributions in other areas, like Isaac Newton was famously a big mystic, but all of the time, this otherwise smart person spent that could have made many more contributions to humanity that he spent on his mystical research ended up with no contribution to humanity. It just sucks the life and time from otherwise well-meaning individuals.
I mean, I think that there are some, like St. Francis of Assisi, I think inspired a lot of people, but did he actually help anyone?
And I think that's actually why the Bible specifically asks that you not indulge in mysticism and witchcraft. It isn't because of, what would you say? It isn't necessarily that it's going to, like, I don't know how to word this. It's essentially not just some random rule, and it is specifically because it can lead you to absolutely just waste your time and your life away, because you are dabbling in things that you don't fully understand, and due to that fact, you are coming across a variety of spirits and demons. Again, in my opinion, those are ideologies and mindsets. And these ideologies and mindsets are, or could lead you to obsession and a lot of like just warping of your mental perspective, and those could lead you to make terrible decisions for yourself and those around you, not only, you know, your family, but also your community.
Well, no, this is true for most mystics. They're otherwise intelligent people that are basically removed from the efficacious pool of Earth's population.
Yeah. Fertility shredder, IQ shredder. Yeah, not great.
Well, because if whether or not you're a good person is entirely subjective to this internal framework that you've built for yourself, a lot of people want to believe, like, well, I'm good enough, right? Like, I'm, you know, and so they lean into that, and it leads them to engage with information without any external way to deconfirm it, right?
I agree, and it's very frustrating. But I think understanding that there doesn't need to be a difference between technology and magic, that there doesn't. I think there's a lot of groups that could be working together or appreciating things. Well, I think a lot of, look, give credit to Catholics, okay? The groups, you know, like, I think a lot of Muslims did this as well. Like, Islam had its moment with this too, but I know mostly of historical examples of Catholics being among the first to really move forward the sciences, to move forward our understanding of the world and the universe, because they wanted to understand the magic of God. the amazing things that God has built, right?
Yeah, I mean,
and
Catholics
they're never like, there was this point, and I don't know exactly when historically there was this divide when suddenly like learning more about science became heretical. And I think maybe it was a corruption. It was a corruption of humans, not of anything of what God would have wanted.
So, if you're wondering when this was, the biggest and direct turning point, because I went to AI to ask, was probably Galileo. Up until 1616, the church had regularly supported and invested in scientific advancement. At 1616, the church's consultants declared heliocentrism, the Earth orbiting the sun, as false and contrary to Scripture. This is based on certain readings of the Bible, although it wasn't formally declared by the Inquisition at this point. And Galileo was tried in 1633. He was forced to recant and sentenced to house under arrest, and his book was placed on the index of forbidden works. And after this point, they began to more frequently and just sort of escalatingly deny science. But again, of course, if we just went back to the way Catholics used to be.
But I'd point out that if you look at Catholics in how they relate to mysticism, they have a benefit in that they have a centralized institution that can, rein in the charismatic mystic and just be like, no, you're wrong. Like, people need to stop listening to you at this point. This is just wrong. But because they've always had that level of protection against mysticism, it means that the latent level of mysticism within Catholic communities has always been higher than other Christian denominations. So basically, they don't get the worst of it. They're protected from that. But the latent toxic effects of mysticism is much higher. Yeah, I mean, obviously within techno-puritanism, not tolerated.
Acknowledge that at least at one point in human history, it was the Catholics who best understood that magic and technology are the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the techno-Puritan perspective on this is obviously, for now, we are a minority population, living in a society where these things are normalized, and it is upon us to not make ourselves negative externalities on other groups by being overly aggressive on the point of witchcraft or mysticism, right?
Oh, okay. So you're saying, hey, give some grace to mystics, give some grace to witches.
When we say don't interfere with the basilisk, right? Like, mysticism
No, absolutely.
Yes. Until like this changes when you have techno-Puritan first communities, techno-Puritan first spaceships, techno-Puritan first colonies.
Right. Like within the techno-Puritan space, there's zero tolerance for it, but that doesn't stop us from tolerating it among other groups that are not impinging on our ability
to
go
because
about our sovereign business.
The Bible lays out suffer not a witch to live, and I think that should be the rule within techno-Puritan first
right.
communities.
Of course, people define witch very differently. Yes, that's definitions are.
I mean, if you are using magic against God's will, that's like a witch, right? Like you have specifically tapped in to God's purview, presumably.
Right. Then a Catholic could turn around on us per our episode, per what we've said here, and say, okay, technology is magic, magic is technology. You are using IVF technology against a God's will, i.e. by, creating souls that may possibly be trapped forever on ice until they are, taken away from us and discarded for some weird reason. I don't know.
But God commanded us to move forwards technology, right? Like that it was the line I talked about earlier. That is how, like, obviously when you create a new life-saving medical procedure, when you create a new, when you cure cancer or something like that, there have been Christian groups that said, like, no blood transfers. No Catholic says no blood transfers, nor do I think any Catholic would actually trade 10 just fertilized blastocysts for a 10-year-old human boy's life. Right? Like, I think that actually the moral equation is quite well understood. It's just engaged with differently, right?
And funny enough, I think this is why the Bible specifically states that let me actually double check that, because I believe it does state that the breath of life is given after birth, right? Or at the time of birth. I see. So there is actually nothing specifically in the Bible that sort of concretely states when life begins. And by life, I was under the assumption that would be essentially consciousness. So in Genesis 2:7, God does breathe life into Adam through the nostrils. But obviously this is an entirely different case because Adam was the first human. And so we don't really know what sort of, mechanisms were going on at that time. And then in Psalm 139:13 through 16 and Jeremiah 1:5, it does seem that those two pieces explore or suggest that God knows the values of human life while still in the womb. In other words, before birth. So it's a complicated topic.
Right? But when it comes to mysticism more broadly, what I'm talking about is, because this is something I've thought about more, like as the religion grows, as we get members, what does it look like if we ever have our own colonies, if we ever have techno-Puritan majority countries, right? Like techno-Puritan majority environments. How do we relate to secular law within those environments? And I think that we should be very aggressive, at least with members of our community, of anything that smacks of mystical framing. And this isn't to say mystical research. Mystical research is always allowed. This is disprovable. Like if you're like, I'm going to do an experiment on the world of mysticism, fine, because then you're bringing mysticism into science, right? And we're understanding it better. It's when the idea is based on wishy thinking. And the reason I say all this is I just think it leads to negative externalities in people's lives.
Not sure.
Whether these worlds exist or not, whether they're tapping into something real or not, it seems to damage people's lives. And damage the lives of people around them who get sucked in, because eventually you end up with essentially, if I'm a mystic professionally and I'm not producing any money, right? I'm getting money from either my disciples or from the people my disciples teach.
Yeah.
And so I've set up this completely parasitic, both in terms of economic and technological productivity, because it's drawing in resources from the group around it, but also a parasitic community that bleeds poison into the logic of the people that it touches.
Yeah, and I guess another way you could look at it too, because I think there's a lot of people who politely support / tolerate mysticism, but you could ask, would you be happy if your son or daughter became a diehard mystic? Because if not, then maybe be a little less tolerant.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, and I will be incredibly strict with our kids if it comes to something like horoscopes or something like this. When it comes to, any of the crystals or whatever, no.
Those are so pervasive. Oh my gosh, horoscopes and crystals these days. Am I right?
Yeah.
It's so hard to tell, too, when people are talking about it ironically versus not. Because all you have to do is be like, oh, but he's an Aries. Oh, well, that explains everything. And I can never tell if someone's joking or if they actually believe that, like, there are traits. Anyway, let's not go there.
And for people who understand why you have to be so strict about this stuff, when we're talking about the far future, in something like America today, mystics are not a big threat to us, right? If we're
Speak for yourself, but sure.
If we're talking about the distant future and you're on a closed environment spaceship or space station, this becomes quite different. Mystics are an existential threat to everyone else on board that spaceship or space station. And this is why we have to be much stricter when we're talking.
Yeah, because, if, for example, you were on the International Space Station and somebody on board decided, well, this this astronaut food is killing us. It's not providing us the life energy that we need to survive, and instead we need to open the hatch and let in the life energy of the universe and the dark void to power us through. You know, that's immediately gonna create a whole lot of chaos and, you know, a lot of it's death. It immediately causes death.
Talking about like the way that techno-Puritan colonies would work, because we've always talked about intentionally setting them up in harsh environments. If you're in Antarctica or something, you have a colony, or deep under the ocean and you have a colony, and you know, you have somebody within that colony who is experimenting with whether or not we need to breathe, that has massive deleterious effects for everyone else in that colony.
Well, and I mean, presumably this is why there have been some isolated colonies that have just, I don't know, you know, someone went away for a little bit, went to go buy some cigarettes, came back a year later, no one was left alive. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, came with a ship of supplies from England. Oh, where is everyone? Things can go wrong real fast in these isolated communities. You don't want to do this in space, in the vacuum. Not great.
And this is where we are really excited about the diversity, the genetic diversity that we will see in humanity's future. You know, when you get different groups engaging fully with genetic augmentation, groups are going to spec into different things, and that's going to be really, really fun. The other thing that Lisa said on that call I thought was so interesting, I mentioned this before, but it was just such an interesting take. As I was like, well, you know, some groups, like our group, might spec into like looking like giant custodies or space marines, right? And another group, like say the Jews, with their high sneak stat, as we often talk about, might spec into like an agility sneak role or something like that, or, you know. And she's like, you know, when you're creating a boarding party or a party for your crew, you know, you want people with these different specs, right? And each of them will have their own role. In the same way you're going to have a better team if you have like an orc warrior and like a dwarf, you know, engineer and like an elfin archer, than you're going to have if you have like an all-human team. Right, in like a D&D game or something like that, and so there is utility in tolerance for other world perspectives when you are engaging with those communities in a way that is mutually productive for each community. I just, you know, and again, this isn't me saying I am against we may discover a dualist worldview in the future. I am not saying that we don't discover that, but when we do, it, you know, well, how can I use souls to power things, right? How can I, you know, use magic to, when we do, immediately it's a new physical puzzle to be dissected rather than intrinsically an enigma. Because if it is intrinsically an enigma, then what we have tapped into is a chaos realm, and a chaos realm is always destroying to the human mind.
You were telling me that it's with your head. The certain amount of it after a while, it's just with your head.
That's why I'm usually kind of like almost autistic, is I'm just being constantly.
Right. Why?
Because lower entities will come in and violate your free will.
They know they see right through you.
They will not manipulate your free will unless you ask them in.
I have.
Dude, do not.
And that's essentially how I see reality. Yes, there are entities outside of yourself who will manipulate you and will take advantage of your free will. But like I said previously, those are ideologies, those are emotions, those are mindsets. And you should not relinquish control to them, because next thing you know, you find yourself, you know, doing crack on a corner, and you're wondering where your life has gone.
Not say that. I'm going to get killed.
I've 100% communicated with something.
I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying, be careful.
The question is whether that something was actually in my imagination or in my mind, or whether that something was something that takes place in another dimension.
Once you open that gate, it's all.
And I think it takes place in your mind, in your own consciousness. But it also takes place in other people's minds and consciousness. So it is inside you and outside you at the same time.
All bad.
Why is it all bad? Why can't you experience that interdimensional being and learn something from it? And be a better person when you come out of it?
Because every time it gets control, it starts murdering everybody.
They wind up killing everybody.
In every case. And it always starts beautiful. It always starts great.
Problem is, some of it makes sense.
That's where the psychosis comes in.
Whoa.
It's going to create a giant societal crisis where most of the people are already going to get killed because an evil force wants conflict. So I'm saying no, no, no.
It's all chaos.
Stop it.
This is the nature of the beast.
Bro.
People say, well,
Come
the Communist
on.
Manifesto
Got
is a
an
pretty
ad
good
after
book.
that.
Like, well, have you read it? I think what's most commonly misunderstood.
Misunderstood. The skip button.
I like it.
As a getting into pure techno-Puritan philosophy here. I've been doing more of those instead of like straight literalist Bible interpretations recently, because I realize that as a community is growing, they need more, not like why I am so affirmed in this from the Bible, but a framing for how to see and interact with their beliefs about the world and reality in a way that's useful to them, and also a better understanding of how we're actually different than other groups, which maybe not as much as both other groups and our community would initially think, right?
I agree. Yeah. And we can't just look at how the Bible's legit, but what makes a techno-Puritan and not some other new religion or old religion.
Yeah. Very nice. I love you so much. And thank you for your time, Simone. Any final thoughts?
I love you too. And
for food tonight, we're just reheating potato.
I'm gonna make the kids mac and cheese. Do you want some as well? Or
That
instead?
potato is very filling.
Okay.
I'm okay with some bonchon if it's not extra work for you, but also just reheating the 2 slices that we have left of the potato is enough for me.
Potato rarebit. There must be a proper name for it. Okay.
You did a good job with it, Simone. Way to go.
I feel bad because it's insufficient effort, but
that's not really the way the world works.
I know. Yeah, there's this whole thing. I don't know how pervasive it is in other cultures, but like if you didn't suffer over it and if it didn't take forever, it's not valuable. I don't know how to get around that. Like I think if your influence from the Church of Subgenius and this concept of Slack may have. No, I just think it's in your nature to appreciate the elegance of minimal movement. And I appreciate that too. But I've been so steeped in American grind culture of like, oh, if I have to perform.
Which is officially a techno-Puritan sin now, Simone.
I know, it is genuinely sinful. Slack is virtue. Performative.
Slack is a techno-Puritan virtue. And
Yeah.
like, study the Subgenius to learn about Slack, because it is a techno-Puritan virtue. And to deliberately act in a way that is extra work for yourself is time that you could have spent contributing to the world or your sleep, which you're always getting on me for.
That is actually a very good point, yeah. That is very true. Always work hard, but never work too hard, because once you start working, too hard, you end up screwing yourself over in the long term.
All right, packed. Sleep packed. Let's do it tonight. Okay.
Okay.
Fine. Okay. I love you.
Love you. Ish.
Sorry, Toasty. You know what happened. Now you're paying the price, friend.
He thinks I'm not there because he's in trouble.
Yeah, dude, I'm never miss an opportunity to add drama to
punishment.
Yeah. Someone's banishment from good favor. All right. Have I learned anything interesting today? There's this one, I've tapped into this one YouTube channel that talks about cosmetic procedures in China. And one of the things that was a trend for a while, maybe it's still a trend, is getting a permanent smile where like your lips are just a little bit upturned constantly. There was one actress who got it done, and then she went on this talk show where her mother berated her for getting too many cosmetic procedures because she got like over 20. Like she spent well over $100,000 doing stuff to her face, and then she goes on this talk show and her mom's like, I don't even recognize it in you anymore. Like, you have to stop. I'm going no contact if you keep doing this. And she's just sitting there like looking like like pleasantly smiling, and everyone's like, why are you not reacting? Why are you not crying? And she's like, well, I am crying. It's just that I got surgery to look like I'm constantly smiling. So she looked really disingenuous. The audience is of course horrified because that is horrifying.
Here's a
all
fun
I think
thing.
about
I
now.
added super stock to RFab.
Yay!
So now there's a
Stock.
feature that was suggested by Simone that allows you to stalk anyone and get all of their information, and it's actually
Saves
quite
me
good
so
at
much
email
time.
finding.
Yeah, because one of the things that I'm constantly doing is stalking people online and finding their emails and learning about their backgrounds and their career and where they came from. And I have to do all this separate searches. I use a little bit of AI, a little bit of a specific type of Google search. You're doing it for me. Now I just go on Superstock with RFab. Is it live? Can I use it?
It'll be live by the time we're done filming this episode.
I've seen plenty of power banks over my 15
Really?
years of reviewing
Come
tech,
on,
but this
another
Ridge one
fucking ad.
quickly became a favorite.
Wow,
this,
quickly
the
became a
10,000 milliamp
favorite
hour
from
battery that's already this small, is
Marcus.
pretty
I
clutch,
forget his
but
name.
It's also pretty
Brownlee.
loaded.
The other two features I am scrambling to get done by the time this goes live, or at least within a few hours of this going live, is Leaflet's cool new thing for handling VTubing, which is just like way better than anything I built. Our hardware thing, which for $45 allows you to buy a hardware app that you can flash with our software, basically your own personal Pip-Boy. And it's got its own unique system that allows it to switch emotions, send you images, send you videos, you know, a lot more. We really made it to tutor our kids so we don't have to deal with, you know, raising the little buggers. And then the final thing is an API system that allows you to put in your own personal APIs for anything you want to do and not pay us. It's just a way for us to make less money. I don't know why we made it. I was inspired by Leaflet doing it, and I don't know. Capitalism maxing, peer pressure.
I'm so excited. Superstock.
In addition to Superstock, I'm now working on a feature that integrates email, text, WhatsApp, X, and everything. And people are like, I think there's probably already some sites that probably try to do this.
There are. I mean, like a Hootsuite, for example, for people like managing a social media presence, allows you to schedule and check across platforms. But I don't want to pay for it. And I imagine it's pretty, I always like, I've tried free trials of it and I don't really like it. And then there were a bunch of others that I'd used in the past that may have gone defunct now. The problem is that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. This isn't something I struggle with, is that everyone has, like, there are some people we only talk with on Discord, and then there's the only on Signal person, and there's the only on X version person, and there's only email people, only text people, only WhatsApp people. I'm just like, every day I use this routine using the Comet browser with Perplexity to like open this like long list of URLs so I can check everything, the LinkedIn messages, the Instagram DMs. I'm so freaking tired.
So you'll be able to do that at the same place where you can generate not safe for work images and videos.
Yeah,
and
you can get it's a one-stop shop. You can do everything you need to. You can goon and grind all in one place.
I've got the engine that searches every not safe for work drawn image gallery at once.
Yeah, I tested that on this drive to New York we were once on, and I was like, how effective is this search system? And so I decided to search cat girl and hamburger, because I was like, it couldn't possibly. I will never look at a hamburger the same way again. Then I looked up excavator. No, excavators are ruined for me. It works.
The big thing that it does is it's strictly better for looking at not safe for work images than not safe for work image sites themselves, because it has a button that allows you to download an entire gallery at once and zips it for you.
It's incredibly impressive. It is deeply incredible, and you can even do safe for work versions of this, right? I think you can turn off NSFW.
Yeah, you can turn off, but it's not
So
gonna
like,
do
if I just wanted to find like fan art, I could just do that.
Yeah, like it combines like, you know, Pixiv and DeviantArt and Danburo and all the other, you know, sites.
Yeah, I was shocked by how effective that was. And again, I don't think I'll ever be able to eat a hamburger again. I don't think I'll ever be able to go buy an excavator again.
Okay.
All right, I'm not going to think about it. But what Malcolm said to me this morning was, well, Simone, like, what are ways that your life could be made easier, you know, in theory with AI? And I gave him my super stock thing and my I can't deal with all the DMs thing. Can you guys let us know, like, if there are any facets of your life that could be improved with AI? If we hear about it from enough people, Malcolm will just build it. He built my super stock Like
this happens from Leaflet streams. Somebody on a Leaflet stream was randomly like, "Can you build a DM narration helper that makes it easier to DM games?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I can build an AI DM assist."
We did this like I was cutting apples downstairs for the kids because our childcare fell through today, and like then I come up with apples and smoothies, and he's like, "I built super stuff."
Yeah,
I
the
feel
email
so
integration
inadequate.
is going to take ages because I've got to test every single integration and make sure it works. And some of them I have to get around like the developer's own rules to do this. So I'll basically be taking parts of their stuff on your computer and hijacking it.
Exactly what I told him. But I forgot all what it looked like.
So good.
Early tomorrow.
You want the sheep movie?
Watch it while I make dinner, buddy.
Andy, are you okay now?
I was done.
And it went on to the next one. How long is this one?
Internet?
That was actually a really good
Cox
video.
Internet has the fast, reliable speeds
Come
you're
on, shut
looking
up.
for.
I had read this. Hello, Simone.
Yeah, that was a pretty good video. I am now going to remove it from my watch later. You know what? Oh, there it is. Alright, so here's our progress thus far. Are you serious? My capture card died. Yep. Screw me, bro. The worst part is I don't realize when it's happened. Ah, crap. I disconnected my microphone instead of the capture card. There we go. Capture card is back online. Got him. So here's our progress thus far, and I didn't realize that I had the freaking mirror turned on. But that's fine. That's fine. Now, should we watch the other video? We've got, like 20 minutes.
Pain in childbirth in.
This is a 40-minute video, so definitely not. Let's see what this one's about. This is a video. Not this.
Like $12.9 million.
This is a video by Decoy Voice. And apparently Nick Shirley takes on the Chinese and Korean mobs.
Like $12.9 million on 7,000 patients, and you say there's not 7,000 patients. Are you committing fraud? Does this daycare pay you to come here?
여기.
She just said yes.
Imagine since Nick's getting
Bro.
Koreans, I just switched up into I always knew Shirley was a snake. He's now putting me specifically in danger, since only simple imbeciles think catching criminals equals accusations of an entire ethnicity. I say this jokingly as a Korean, but there are idiots that actually believe this.
One of the largest fraud schemes in America is taking place in New York City as billions of dollars is being defrauded by organized Korean and Chinese mafias. In the state of New York, government-funded personal assistance has become the #1 fastest growing industry in the state, going from $2.5 billion in 2019 to now nearly $12 billion in 2025. Locations like Flushing, Queens have more than 70 adult daycares within just a few blocks. Some of these daycares receiving more than $40 million to watch the elderly play board games at the taxpayers' expense.
Now, a bulk of this segment just explains how they indeed provide services to elderly Asians, as sadly adult daycares is a booming business since you're just billing the taxpayer. What's advertised as healthcare, a human right, has just become a jobs program ripe with fraud. And now with the mayor saying the same for universal childcare, they're likely going to see more of the same sort of scam.
This adult daycare right here billed $12.9 million. In adult daycare, they paid $10.8 million, and in transportation, they paid $2.1 million. They bust these old people in, and then they bring them in here, and then they're taking kickbacks. Oh, I would like to sign my grandma up for daycare.
Can you repeat that again?
I would like to sign my grandma for daycare.
Oh, she's American, right?
Yeah.
But no American here, so...
So you're discriminating against Americans?
No, not no discrimination. But yeah, only the Koreans here, so I think she cannot get along with other people because they cannot speak English.
Imagine spending your whole life paying taxes, not being able to afford healthcare, to discover that 12 million of your American tax dollars went to providing daytime activities to adults that never bothered to learn the language. As sadly we're seeing these parallel communities pop up everywhere across the country, where they share zero similarities between language, culture, or even beliefs. But the only thing they do have in common is complete dependence on America's tax dollars.
Do you think it's true that a lot of these daycares are like committing fraud?
I heard some other daycares are doing fraud, but we don't do fraud thing.
Gone to daycare? Where'd I come from?
Yes.
Oh, I come from around here.
Yes.
We're just concerned about where our tax dollars are going, so. And how come you guys are the daycare that receives the most amount of money here in Flushing, Queens?
We have a lot of members.
This is the most hilarious shot of the episode, and I don't even think Nick noticed, as she's casually slipping in with a $5,000 YSL beach bag, as also in the frame.
$5,000 for that crap? What the hell? It's $5,500. What is this? Why?
As also in the frame is a 177 person capacity. This business seems like it's only floor 2 and sees 7,800 plus patients. I'm no math Asian, but this just doesn't seem likely. Not impossible, but at least worth a little investigating, so why is it up to a YouTuber to do it?
How many members do you guys have?
I don't have to tell you.
Because here it says you guys have 7,899.
Where did you get this information?
Oh, it's actually from the public databases of
7,899. Second floor only allows for 177 people max capacity. Bro, how many floors is this building? Alright, so 7,899. If you divide that by the 177, Damn. This building would have to have something like 40 floors. 40 floors to be able to keep 7,000 people in it. That's rough. That's difficult. I mean, you could say that the patients are there, you know, one day and not the other day. You know, maybe they have a rotating, you know, lineup of people who come in. But that is still 40 times the capacity of their second floor. The only way this would make sense is if they had several buildings, right? They would have to have several buildings.
CMS and HHS.
Do I have to tell you the number?
But yeah, but do you guys have 7,000 members, for instance?
No, we don't have 7,000 members.
Are you guys overbilling then? Because you guys are getting paid per patient $1,600, and that's how you guys got $12.9 million in 2024.
I don't know how they calculate.
How come you guys billed for 7,000 people then?
Do I have to tell you?
Well, you like $12.9 million on 7,000 patients, and you say there's not 7,000 patients. Are you committing fraud? Like, are these numbers wrong?
Please, sir.
$12.9 million? That's a lot of money. All right, we will leave. You could have just answered the questions. Now,
I said I don't want to.
Now people are going to be wondering if you committed fraud.
I said I don't want to, but why you keep asking me? I said I don't want to tell you the information.
Well,
why?
These are taxpayer dollars, so...
For what?
Why do these suspected fraudsters always seem so indignant at the idea that tax dollars shouldn't be stolen? As I know nothing about that guy, but judging by his enunciations, he, like me, was not born in America. I don't know what he specifically contributed to the tax base, but judging by his annoyance at Nick, he likely hasn't contributed much if he isn't concerned when it's stolen. As he openly admits, there's no way we treat 7,000 patients in this tiny facility, so someone's money is being spent on services not actually received. And if he was not the recipient of the alleged fraud, he should be equally angry at the idea that a couple extra $1 million got washed through that business. But his indignance makes me believe it's him.
Sir, is it possible to have 7,000 people on that one floor? Like, that's how simple it is.
Oh, let's see. How many floors is this building?
Makes me believe it's him.
Sir, is it possible to have 7,000 people on that one floor? Like, that's how simple it is. Just answer the question.
After he couldn't answer any of her questions, he then called the cop.
So we are looking at least 3 floors. It's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. Because these buildings in the back seem to be very different from the ones in the front. Just, you know, the way that they're built. These ones in the front have 1, 2 balconies, potentially 3, right? So that would mean it's a 4th floor building. But this one over here is what, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 floors. And then I don't know what this area is on the top. So it could be more than 6 floors. For the ones in the back buildings. For these ones in the front, they could be smaller, shorter buildings, or they could be the exact same height, and that's hard to tell just from this shot.
Cops on us.
So the fraudster's gonna call the cops on us. You do realize you're calling the cops on yourself, right? So this is how the operation works. They bring them in through the transportation company. They bring them in right through this door into this adult daycare, and then they bill Medicaid. 7,000 people are supposed to fit on that 2nd floor right there. Dude just snitched on himself. Hello.
If he's specifically saying that there's 7,000 people in just the 2nd floor, that would mean that this daycare business only rents out the 2nd floor. It isn't even their the entire building isn't even, you know, the property of that business. The business does not operate inside of the entirety of that building.
Oh, ma'am. How are you? Does this daycare give kickbacks? Does this daycare pay you to come here? She just said yes. She just said yeah. She said yeah. God bless you. I love your shirt, USA. She just said they get kickbacks.
And honestly, I don't think that lady speaks enough English to admit anything. But why would she? She's going to a Korean daycare, sandwiched in between a Chinese trading company selling restaurant supplies.
Oh, I see. The main business is, I guess on the top floor? Specialty logo customization below that. The restaurant, kitchen, and wholesale retail. And then small items, wholesale retail. Wait. Then where the hell is the daycare? What? Is the daycare the main business? Which one is the daycare?
Sandwiched in between a Chinese trading company selling restaurant supplies, small items, and logo design, which, judging by their signs, graphic design, I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't just a front.
Oh, I understand. That's the business next door. That's this business. Yo, this whole setup is confusing, honestly. But yeah, it seems like this business is the one that does all of this stuff. They aren't different businesses for different floors.
Restaurant supplies, small items, and logo design, which, judging by their signs, graphic design, I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't just a front for Chinese money laundering. But it's also beside this Korean preschool as Nick nonstop walks by healthcare facilities, discovering the same exact scam everywhere.
As you can see, I have full coverage. I have a
sure.
policy.
Yeah.
I love
yeah,
my
you
coverage.
do. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love my insurance company, but I
No,
was
you
paying
don't.
a lot
You
and
hate
I
them.
didn't even
Skip. Thank you.
This place received $9.4 million, and it said it had 8,060 patients. My name's Nick. We're coming through. We just put over at Sunrise Senior Daycare, and we've been going to a few of the daycares around here, trying to look for the best one possible for our grandma Debbie.
Oh, will you look? I'm because I'm busy right now. But I think we don't accept the new member, right?
No members? Why not?
Yeah, yes, because we have enough. Yeah.
How many do you guys have? It says you guys have 8,000 patients here.
No.
Around 8,000?
No, who say that?
HHS?
What?
$9.4 million.
Sorry. Okay.
Do you guys have 8,000 patients?
No.
No. Did you guys bill for 8,000 patients in 2024?
No, that's too much. No.
Yeah, it is a lot, right? $9.4 million.
It's just crazy.
Do you guys receive money from Medicaid?
No. What are you talking about?
And who knows if they're the masterminds behind any of this or not.
I mean, they do seem confused, but they also seem really stressed the hell out. Like, they might know about some shady deals in the back, but they don't really know what those shady deals entail.
Just because you work at the laundromat up top doesn't mean you knew anything about the meth facility beneath it, or the idea that the frontline employees don't even know what's funding their operation, again points me to fraud.
This place made $7.6 million in 2025?
It's not your business.
It actually is, because it's our tax dollars. It's public information from the HHS.
What?
So what?
Yeah, you pay all this tax?
You guys received $5.5 million. $5.5 million.
Have a good day. Yeah. Have a good day.
This place received $8.6 million in 2025. They billed the state for 406 beneficiaries. My name's Nick Shirley.
No, it's only any survey.
And sir, could you just answer the questions? In 2024, billed over $17 million, and there's 122,000 claims. What's the main service you guys provide? You guys do, well, I mean, 99% of all your services come from one code.
We then headed over to a daycare that had a pharmacy on one side and another medical facility on the other side.
The most common job in the state of New York by twofold is personal care services that are hired when you go to one of these programs. There's a strip there. There are more than half a dozen pharmacies, back to back to back. We got one here, but two, another pharmacy. Another pharmacy.
So right here we have another adult daycare. Look at
Across
this.
the street. These folks tend to be from China and Korea.
To the untrained American eye, Korean and Chinese can seem somewhat similar when they couldn't be further apart culturally. But when you don't think about this situation racially, but criminally, you'll realize this isn't an attack on Asians, this is an investigation on criminals. As fraud in America has become so unbelievably easy, bad actors from every single culture, from Koreans, Chinese, Russians, and Somalians, all seem to coincidentally stumble on the same exact scheme. As remember, Dr. Oz found nearly the same exact thing in Los Angeles.
A third of all these programs in the entire country are in Los Angeles. Ask yourself, how is that possible? And we believe that at least half of the hospices in the entire area around Los Angeles are fraudulent. And today we announce 800 of those hospices have been suspended. That's getting us, close to where we think we should be. 800 hospices that last year charged the federal taxpayer $1.4 billion.
But California's Governor Gavin Newsom rushed in to call it a civil rights violation.
Governor Gavin Newsom's office is filing a civil rights complaint against Dr. Oz, who is currently serving as administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The governor is seeking an investigation into Oz's, quote, baseless and racist allegations against Armenian Americans in California.
As no true American cares where the fraud is from. We just care if they're incarcerated, preferably forever, doing hard labor. As at least to me, I don't care if it's a Learning Center providing childcare to nobody, or Koreans pretending 200 ajamas are actually 7,000. Theft is theft, and anybody trying to deflect this citing race is probably also on the take. So make sure to check out Nick Shirley and all his amazing journalism that actually forces the mainstream media to cover it too. And if you appreciate my concise, lighthearted commentary on the tragic status that is today's reality, hopefully I've earned your subscription and you'll subscribe to Decoy.
No. So yeah, that's it. That's it for today, I believe, right? Yeah, I got shit to do. So that's all the YouTube for today. As usual, I'm very freaking slow. So our progress was something. I have changed my mind on the hair. And right now I'm just going to lay down a quick sketch of what I want the rest of the hair to look like so that I at least have something down. That's good enough. Good enough. Seems we've been live for an hour and 45 minutes. And I think it's a good place to stop. So if you can hear me, if you're out there listening, thank you very much for tuning in. That is all for today. See you next time.